So I, 32 male, have been married to my wife, Allie, 33, for 5 years. Her dad was a restaurant business owner, and her mom stayed at home. Both of Allie's sisters got married to very successful guys and had kids. At the beginning of our relationship, I started my construction business. I wasn't making a ton of money, and Allie's parents hated it. Her sisters always tried to set Allie up with their husband's friends. Her father disapproved of our wedding and forced Allie to ask for a prenup if she wanted help with the wedding. Allie also requested for us to have separate finances. We have had a loving marriage so far, even with the rocky start, but whenever she visits her family, I tend not to go. So Allie's dad made some bad investments, got screwed by his partner, and his business took big losses. Due to this, he and his wife struggled to retire as they hoped. So Allie's sisters came up with a surprise for their parents on their 40th wedding anniversary. They would pay off their house and send them on vacation to celebrate retirement. The whole thing would cost about $30K. Each sister would be responsible for $10K. Allie has always paid for things regarding her family, and I pay for mine. However, she gets along with my parents and will buy things for them sometimes. So Allie's a school teacher, and when she found out about the plan, she asked me for $8K. I laughed. I said her parents were awful to me. They thought I was a broke loser, and you asked for a prenup. Our finances were separate because she asked for it, and I don't plan to change it. Allie said she didn't have the money right now but would pay me back, which I know is nonsense and isn't something I consider anyway, as I intend to not help her family out in any way. Allie and her sisters got on a Zoom call to talk about it. I was called into the meeting and asked by the sisters to have some empathy. I told them I had decided, and then I was criticized. Her sisters went off on how I'm holding a grudge still, how I should be willing to help my wife, and how it's just money. I said how neither of them has worked a day in their lives. One is a stay-at-home mom, and one divorced their doctor husband and gets alimony. How neither of them gave me a chance 6 years ago. How neither of them is using their money either, just using their husbands like they always do. That Allie asked for a prenup because their dad thought I was a loser, and now he needs my help. That Allie should manage her money better. I told them both never to ask me for a favor again. After we got off the call, Allie said she felt like I was being unfair and petty, that I've helped my parents out before, which is true. I bought my dad a new $30K truck about a year ago. I said that's because my silly business took off and I can afford to do those things, and the parents are her responsibility, and I don't owe them a thing. While I'm not in the wrong, my parents think laughing at my wife's request was kind of an idiot move. Am I the idiot? Edit. Yes, her parents tried apologizing, but I have a feeling this is only because my business took off. They try to invite me to come to holidays and stuff, but I don't respond. Not the idiot. They messed around and found out. The laughing seems natural, given the circumstances, but if it was something that was a need, it may be different. A vacation and mortgage paid so they can retire early? Nah. Have your wife get a loan from her sisters to cover her part of the grand gesture, and she can pay them back. Problem solved. And let's be real here. OP's wife is a school teacher. The prenup was never about protecting OP's wife's assets. It was about preventing OP from accessing the parents' assets. This entire financial debacle has been about OP's wife's parents and sisters' fear over what OP would do with access to their fabulous riches, which no longer exist. Now that they no longer have those fabulous riches, but OP does, they seem remarkably friendly and keen on talking about letting bygones be bygones. Not the idiot. Agree 100%. A prenup to me is a red flag too far. Something doesn't sit right with me when I hear prenup. She decided to listen to her parents and require this of you. Now she must face the reality of this move. It's really, really sad that you're in this position. Maybe a little bit idiot in you to rub her nose in it, but ultimately it was her decision, and that decision has come and bitten her butt. Not your fault. She asked for separate finances. She got them. I've been mostly estranged from my father since I was 15. I've only ever maintained a relationship with my grandmother. The estrangement was due to my mom, him, and me. I won't blame him entirely. When I was 23, I found out that my father had given my grandmother's home to my stepbrother. My father had given it under the assumption that my grandmother would give it to him once she passed away, which she'd promised to do several times. My stepbrother was older, married, had a child, and needed a home. I have nothing against him as a person, but I felt bitter about it and griped to my grandmother how my father had sidelined me again. After I vented, I made myself forget about the house. My grandmother passed away earlier this year and had given the house to me instead, to everyone's surprise. It was obviously a very awkward situation. It was made even more awkward when I found out that my stepbrother and his wife had completely gut renovated most of the house by putting in nearly $90K of their own money. My father called me and begged me to let him buy the house for around $150K, so my stepbrother wouldn't have to pay for his mistake. Here is where I think I'm the idiot. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever be able to own a house otherwise, so I told my father I would be keeping the house, and I gave notice to my stepbrother to move out. I've since moved into the house, and while I'm still slightly guilty about enjoying a renovated house that I didn't pay for, I can't help but think this whole mess would have been avoided if my father had waited to receive the house before giving it away. I've since had a conversation with my father about why my grandmother might have done what she did because of me venting to her, and he's upset. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your stepbrother is a fool for sinking $90K into a house that wasn't his and going just on your father's word of your grandmother's word. It's super awkward, sure, but you don't have to pay for their mistakes. If your grandmother wanted someone else to have the house, she could have changed her will. Your dad can take the $150K he offered you and reimburse his son. Everyone's the idiot here except the stepbrother. Here's the thing. Your grandmother promised to give your father the house. Your father, acting in good faith on that promise, tried to help out his son. His son, acting in good faith on that promise, put money into that house. A lot of money. $90K is more than a lot of people make in a year. Legally, the house is yours. Morally, you're the idiot because you didn't take into account your stepbrother's contributions to the house and just turned his family out. Your stepbrother did nothing wrong here and ended up losing a home he put a ton of money and effort into. Maybe grandma wasn't thrilled her son passed it on before she even passed, and to his stepson versus his bio son and her bio grandson. But it was her house until she died, and she was perfectly within her right to change her mind. Stepbrother should not have renovated a house he did not own, and he did live rent-free in that house for years. The only people here who are in the wrong are your dad, most of all for claiming to have the authority to give away something that did not belong to him, and possibly your stepbrother for thinking that your dad had the right to give away grandma's house before she was dead, basically. If your dad wants your brother to have the house, he can buy it from you at fair market value. My girlfriend and I have been dating for 3 years. I'm a straight man and she's a bi woman. I hadn't yet met her family. It was something important to me to do. She'd met my family several times and it was important to me to meet her family. I felt like she kept putting it off, saying they were too far away, too expensive, etc. Finally, this year, she and I planned a holiday visit. We booked an Airbnb in their area because she said their house was too small to host us, in addition to all their other holiday guests, and we were going to come over for Christmas dinner. So a week before Christmas, my girlfriend canceled the Airbnb, and only then did she tell me that she'd argued with her family days before. She and her dad had a Zoom call, and apparently, her dad said that her haircut looked gay, and could she style it more conservatively for the holidays with the extended family. Her hair is shaved on both sides, but she parts it in the middle. The shaved sides are concealed. She decided on her own to call off Christmas for that reason, because she's bi and felt very offended her dad had been awful, and also her mom sat there not saying anything. I asked her what she was going to do next, and she said she was going to have a talk with him and her mom, but she was sure they'd work it out. I asked why she didn't speak to me before canceling the Airbnb, and she said that we obviously weren't coming around. I feel kind of hurt because while her dad said something crappy, I felt like it was too severe to decide not to go immediately on her own, especially when she knew I wanted to meet her family and it was important to me. It would be different if she didn't want to work it out and wanted to distance herself permanently. Like then I wouldn't feel like she's keeping her family in her life, but I've never met them. But when she's back to FaceTiming them all the time, She said that it was a privilege for her parents to be able to meet her partner, and that they would have to earn that by treating her with respect before they got to be a part of that, which I feel like was missing the point of why I'm upset. She's talking about them wanting to meet me, but I'm upset because I wanted to meet them. I told her that it feels like she doesn't see our relationship as serious, and she said that I was totally missing the point. This wasn't about me. And she got really upset with me, said that I seemed too okay with their insults, and she didn't like how I was acting like it was even an option to go to family Christmas after what her dad had asked of her. Am I the idiot for being disappointed in not meeting my girlfriend's family? You are the idiot. Your girlfriend is struggling with the conflicting feelings of not being respected by her family, but wanting to be a part of her family. Instead of supporting her, you're only thinking of yourself. It feels like your meeting her family is more important to you than her having to deal with her family dilemma. And it seems to me that you think her queerness stops existing because she's dating you. Because she's currently presenting straight, her parents' insults shouldn't affect her. That's something you're going to need to unpack, rather than trying to throw Airbnb smoke bombs at her. No idiots here. Ideally, she would have discussed canceling future plans with you, and it's okay to be miffed about that. But at the same time, your girlfriend has put in place boundaries about what she will tolerate from her family, and you need to respect that. Her dad saying that about her hair may not seem like a big deal to you, but with all due respect, I think you're underestimating the impact of such insults on LGBT people. It's not a little thing for her. You are the idiot. She has a toxic family with low contact, and that's that. Why don't you ask her to talk to you about her family? Have some open communication about the life she's gone through. Meet them on FaceTime. Why do you need to meet them in person so badly? Are you going to snoop through their underwear drawers or something? And don't say you're planning to ask her dad for his approval for marriage. That won't go over well. If he doesn't love his daughter as she is, he hasn't earned an opinion on if he approves a marriage. Not that this antiquated practice should still exist. My wife and I have been married for 9 years. She's 32 weeks pregnant now. We also have 2 other kids, baby girl and toddler boy. Today we were having dinner together. I was done eating within 15 minutes. I fed the kids after I was done eating. My wife takes about an hour to finish her meal every time because she's a slow eater. The kids were getting cranky after about a half hour of all of us sitting at the table, waiting for her to finish. Son is not allowed electronics at the table because we don't want the kids to get into the habit of gadgets while eating. After about 1.5 hours, the kids started crying, saying that they didn't want to sit at the table anymore, but my wife wasn't done eating yet. I told her I'd put the kids to bed and come back. I brushed their teeth, gave them a quick shower, dressed them up in night clothes, and put them to bed. Then I cleaned up the dirty dishes from the table and washed the vessels. My wife finished her dinner as I washed the dishes and put her sink in the plate. While she was wiping down the counter and stovetop, she told me she was hurt by us not waiting for her to finish dinner. She said that I was teaching our kids that it's okay to disrespect their mom by not waiting for her patiently. She told me she wouldn't be eating dinner with any of us until the kids and I apologized to her. Am I the idiot? Edit. We sat down to dinner around 7 p.m. I got up from the table with the kids at around 8:20. When I came down and was doing the dishes, it was about 9. That's when my wife was done with her food and came to put her plate in the sink. How did OP's actions hurt her? He only took care of the kids' bedtime routine, which is a perfectly good and responsible thing to do. She should be grateful. Not the idiot. You seem like a good dad. Also, an hour and a half solely for eating a meal? What did she eat? A whole killer whale? That's absurdly long. And even if she did that because she's pregnant, she shouldn't expect others to wait for her, especially such little children. Waiting for a single person to eat for 90 minutes is just a waste of time. 100% that she's eating slow on purpose. My mother-in-law does this. Once spent 4.5 hours at a Chinese restaurant for appetizers and mains, and after 3.5 hours, she ordered ice cream. I nearly cried. I had a 4-year-old at the time. It was awful. Then I saw her tip. She was aiming for about 5%. I snuck a proper tip under my plate for the staff. They probably expected to have a few more covers in the time she took. We have avoided restaurants with her since. Maybe I'm a bit petty, but I would have had the kids prepare an apology that lasted for 1.5 hours, complete with pictures and stories. Then, I would augment it with a detailed PowerPoint about how helpful dealing with cranky children and dirty dishes is. But that's just me. Fair enough teaching your kids to sit at the table and eat with adults, but 1.5 hours? To eat one meal? This is crazy. I, as an adult, would have way too much stuff to do to sit around watching someone eat for that amount of time. Also, isn't it weird and awkward for your wife to sit there eating while everyone is long done? How does she manage at restaurants? Has she considered how this will go when they're older and have homework, football practice, or any of the hundreds of things kids do when not in school? Are they supposed to say, "No, sorry, I can't make your birthday party. I have to sit for 2 hours and watch mom eat"? Insane. Let her eat alone until she practices long enough to eat faster. Then she can rejoin you and the kids. I, female 26, have been married to my husband, 31, for 3 years, and we're expecting a baby boy together. When I married my husband, I kept my maiden name, which he was perfectly okay with. We already discussed and agreed that any future kids we would have would automatically take his last name. His family considered this a huge deal, and I decided to just go with it. But recently, I started thinking about it a lot more and figured that it would be unfair for my unborn son to take my husband's family name and not mine. I talked to my family, and they said my husband and in-laws are ridiculous to push this on me without a compromise, expecting I go with it. So I went home and told my husband that I changed my mind about the last name thing and want to either have both our last names combined or my last name to be given to our son. He was confused, saying we had an agreement, and then asked what the cause of this sudden change of mind was. I told him, and he said I couldn't just do that and called me selfish. When I pointed out that I'm the mother, I get a say too. We went back and forth on this, and he said no way he and his family would let me do this to his son, as if my last name is a disgrace. We had a fight and we stopped talking after this. He said that I broke and violated my part of the deal, and I should just deal with it now. But I won't accept it. Am I the idiot? What's with all the people talking to their biological family about their marital issues and not first conversing with their spouse? You are the idiot, OP. I'm pregnant and found myself in a similar situation with my husband. I didn't talk to my parents about it because they're not in my relationship. I sat down with my husband and had a great conversation about what we had agreed on, how I was feeling, and how we would compromise. You can't communicate effectively until you remove your parents from your relationship. They will never give you an unbiased opinion. You literally mentioned that you've had this promise at least since you were married and have both discussed and agreed. He's right to be upset knowing you've already decided. It's a big deal to his family, which you are aware of. In my opinion, you are the idiot, not for wanting to include your last name, but for promising your husband his last name for the kids and then going back on that and starting a huge fight over something you guys had already agreed upon a while ago. It must be out of nowhere for him. Yes, you are the wife and future mom, but that doesn't mean you can just switch sides and go back on your word whenever you feel like it. But people are allowed to change their minds. That's the thing. We all continue to evolve. OP offered the compromise that is a hyphenated last name. Seems fair. How can she be the idiot for that? He's perfectly within his rights to be upset that she's done so in the way that she has. But beyond that, I'm not sure why his family and he think they have a claim over babies they won't even birth. They should just use both their surnames and end this conflict already. That's a perfect compromise in my opinion.